each of the attendees. So the recording just started. And so, yeah, you will have an opportunity to rewatch these in the future if you would like. So today's session is going to be a bit of an extension of last week, but some new information, so a progression, if you will. And so we're still on the topic of, are you thinking about renovating and don't know where to start? This is our second session, and today we're going to move from what a team looks like on a renovation to what should I expect in the design process, what should I expect for timelines, and what should I expect for budgets. And of course, we're going to leave time at the end for question and answers. So please do either enter your questions into the chat throughout the presentation. Carrie from my team is going to be keeping watch on those. We're going to answer them at the end, or you can just keep them, jot them down and send them to me at the end, and then we will go into a Q&A, and that's where sometimes the best information is shared. So once again, welcome. There's a few slides here that if you were here last week are repeats. So I'm going to go through them quite quickly just because they are pertinent to today as well. It's a little bit about us. We are S3 Interior Design. We're a team of design specialists. We're creative, we're technical, we're administrative, and we just really want to be remembered for doing functional, beautiful work where spaces are enduring and people can really enjoy where they live and work. We do residential as well as commercial office spaces. We have a team of 6, myself, I am Tracy, I am the owner, I am the director, a professional interior designer, but now working more on business development. Carrie, who is our senior designer, Zoe, who is our intermediate designer, Josh, our junior designer, Linda's our administrative assistant, and Tia is our marketing coordinator. An overview of what we're going to look at today. So we're going to take a look at the types of design consultants. Last week, we looked at the team. So we look at everything from design to construction. This week, we're going to hone in on the design specifically. So design consultants, we're going to talk about the design process and what deliverables might look like. And we're also going to look at timelines and budgets. So let's first of all take a look at the types of design consultants. And again, I've taken some of the information from last week and just synthesized it. So I'm going to focus on 3 types of design consultants specifically. There are more in this world, but we're going to look at architects, interior designers, and interior decorators specifically. And the purpose of this is to know what each type of consultant does, what their expertise is, and when you might want to engage in each of these type of consultants. So this will look familiar if you were here last week. An architect is a professional who designs and provides advice, both technical and aesthetic. They focus on buildings and landscapes. So an architect's expertise is primarily on exterior design, the whole of a building. And an architect tends to design from the outside in, whereas interior design might also be in their wheelhouse, but it would be secondary. They are also code experts when it comes to life safety in a building. Their education would be a master's degree, as well as professional examinations. And they would act as either a leader or a member of the design team if you have more than one designer on the team. When are they required? They are required on commercial and multifamily projects when you're looking at more than 6,500 square feet of space. They're required when a code analysis or life safety analysis is required on permit drawings, so they have to provide a stamp. They're not required, but if you are desiring to build a custom home or a custom building, they might be a consultant that you would want to engage. Interior designers. We are professionals who design and provide advice, both technical and aesthetic, on building interiors and furnishings. So our expertise is on the interior of a building. That's pretty straightforward. That is our primary role. We think from the inside out. We also do tackle exterior designs more on the residential side than on the commercial side. That would be our secondary role. And then we look at furnishings as well as accessories within the space. Our education could be either a bachelor or master's degree, and we also do have professional national exams that we write. Again, our role, just like the architect, could be a member or a leader of the design team. And when are we required? When you desire a custom interior space, including space planning, finishes, fixtures, and furnishings, that's when you would come to us. We also do look at, on the residential side, full home builds. So we do tackle exterior on that scale, but we are not required by law, not at this point anyways. An interior decorator. This is a question that came up last week, and I'll tackle it again this week. Interior design and interior decorating is often used interchangeably, and that is just common. So I just like to clarify what the roles are for each. So an interior decorator is a person who plans the decoration and furnishings of an existing interior space. Their expertise would be color and textiles, furniture and accessories. The education they would receive might be a college certificate, or they might be self-trained. Their role would be a member of the consultant team generally. When they are required would be if you desire a customized interior space, including furnishings and accessories, and again, not required by law. So just to clarify the difference between a designer and a decorator is a designer starts at the very technical end of a project. So space planning, doing technical drawings, looking at finishes, fixtures, all the pieces all the way down to the furniture and accessories. Whereas an interior decorator would start when there's already a pre-existing space and finish it in terms of its furniture and accessories and maybe paint and things like that. So it's more surface treatment versus implementing the technical side of things. So this is the area where I really want to focus on today, and that's the design process and the deliverables. So you've gone out to hire a consultant, and what can you expect from them? What is it going to look like working with them? Now, obviously, I can't speak to what every design firm might look like, so I have to speak to the one I know, which is ours. It may be unique in some ways to other design firms, but you may see some overlap if you were to compare side by side. One thing I can say about our process is that it is very detailed and very structured, so that is something that we focus highly on. Within S3, we have something called the S13 process. As I mentioned, it's very step by step. It is 4 phases that are broken down into 13 steps. And those phases and steps go from everything from the first moment you connect with us, whether you call the office or send an email or we meet at a networking event, to the last moment when your project is done and you've moved in, and we do a closeout meeting to see how things went. So I'm going to break down phase by phase what we do, and I'm also going to use a project that we recently completed to show some of the deliverables. So you'll see some of the drawings, you'll see some of the photos, just to get an idea of what it looks like to complete a step or a phase and what you would physically get as the client. So phase one contains steps 1 to 3, and that's the getting to know you phase. So that is, like I mentioned, the initial conversation we have where we talk about your project and just get a sense of what it is you're looking for. I do those initial conversations. They're generally done on a phone call, or we set up a quick 15-minute virtual meet and greet. And then what happens is we try to book a discovery consultation. So if you're interested in moving forward and want us to dig deeper, we come to your space, if you have a space. If you don't have a space and you're building a brand new house, we can meet at our office. And the discovery consultation is exactly like it sounds. It's about discovering your project. It's It's a working consultation. It's 2 hours with 2 designers. We ask a lot of questions. We want to get into the meat and potatoes of what you're looking to do and why you want to do it. We also want to offer insights into what might be possible and what might not be possible. We also want to talk about the process. So we would do a presentation such as this. We want to talk about the budget and the timelines that you might have and whether they are realistic and what they might actually look like, because often the initial thought of the client is not always equal with what the reality is when it comes to budgets and timelines. And so we booked that discovery consultation. And then at the end of the discovery consultation, if you decide, you know what, we want to move forward into the rest of the processes, I would put together a design proposal for you that would outline exactly how the next processes would work and what the pricing would be. Phase 2, steps 4 to 9. This is when the meat and potatoes of design happens. So it's the research and concept that we would do for you. We come into your space if your space already exists, if you're doing a renovation, for instance, and we measure that entire space. We put it into our computer software and we take photographs. We do a very detailed inventory of what you have and what you need. And then we start putting together ideas. We put together, and I'm going to show you some images of that, of what we think might be a good concept based on the things that you've told us that are important to you. And that goes all the way through to really detailed design drawings that you can use for construction and for permits at the end. And so it goes from concept to developing the design to finalizing the design. And so here's where we're going to take a look at some imagery of what that might look like. So the first thing we like to do is put together what we call a storyboard or an inspiration board. It comes from the language that you've used to describe your wishes, the feeling that you're trying to create within a space. And so this particular project that we're going to look like was a home on the beach, a cottage, and it was all about the outdoors, creating a sense of nature, being on the water, but also bringing in the prairies because it's a Manitoba cottage. And there were color tones that really spoke to the clients as well as feelings. So this was the first step. And sometimes this might feel, you might ask, why do we need this? And some of it is just because once you start going down the road of design, you need to keep track or keep on track with what your initial thoughts were, because there's so many options and there's so many things you can pick from. And if we can have a concept that feels really strong at the beginning, we can always go back to that and say, remember, this is what we're trying to achieve, instead of kind of drifting off into many different tangents and kind of not knowing where we're at partway through the design. This was a project where we worked on the exterior as well as the interior of the existing cottage. We moved walls, we redid the exterior. So I should have actually probably put this slide second, because the first stage would have been looking at the space planning. So what are the needs of the client? We need a certain amount of spaces for sleeping. We need a certain amount of spaces for gathering with our friends and family. We want a kitchen that has a certain amount of space. So we started reworking the space to make it fit. And so the first step was to create floor plans or space plans that met the requirements of what the clients were looking for. And then in tandem with that, because you're dealing with the interior, you're also touching the exterior. So we would also have been starting to produce some ideas for the exterior. We do drawings that are 2D as well as 3D. We start looking at things like lighting. How are you going to light your space? Where are your light fixtures going to go to best highlight the areas that you want to highlight, or to be able to just see properly? What are the fixtures that are going to go into that space? So this is a concept lighting plan. It's just a starting point. And then as we move down the journey and we've now solidified a floor plan and such, we start looking at the interior details. So we start doing 3D models to give you a sense of what the space might feel like. So this is a kitchen, obviously. We start looking at materiality and fixtures. So what's the flooring going to be, the cabinetry, the backsplash tile, the light fixtures, the door, the handles on the cabinets. So we show that all pictorially, but we also have those materials lying in front of you at the meeting on the table so you can touch and feel. So I'm just going to show you a few different rooms, and then you're going to see the actual finished product at the end. So you can kind of compare how the 3D modeling compares to the real thing. Once we've done that design development stage, and sorry, I didn't say that, those 3Ds and looking at the materiality, that's the design development stage where we're really trying to make sure that we're capturing what you want, what you need, what you've asked for, so that we can start bringing it to the point where we get the technical drawings done. So what you're seeing on the screen now is the actual technical drawings that you would need for builder permits, for pricing, and for construction. So we've got exterior drawings that we do. Last week, if you joined us, we talked about one of the roles on the design team for us is often a CET, which is a certified engineering technologist. They are the ones that if we're doing exterior structure, we ask them to do the foundation work, the exterior walls, the roofing. They put together the drawings for those technical engineered portions of the project. And then we put them together with our drawings so you have a complete package at the end. So you can see these drawings are less about 3Ds and images. They're more, they're technical drawings, just like I mentioned. We also do things called schedules, and also we do materials and fixtures and such. So we have specifications and schedules. So everything that you see in the plan has a note that says, in this room, the flooring is going to be this, and the wall is going to be this, and the cabinet is going to be this, and then a corresponding document that shows the description of each of those things. So phase 3, so now we've worked, we've done a design, we've got drawings that allow you to go out and get pricing and have your building built. What happens now? You get into phase 3, which is steps 10 to 12. And that's what we call procure, manage, and set up. And so during the design phase, one thing I didn't mention is we're also looking at furniture pieces. So I'm just going to jump back for a second. You'll notice in our drawings back here, we also included furniture in our drawings. It's really important that if you're going to have a functional space, you know what kind of furniture fits in. There's nothing worse than building a space and then going, I don't know how we're going to sit in it because my sofa or my sectional or my table doesn't fit. So we want to make sure we've got functional spaces. So at the same time we're talking about the floor plan, we're also starting to talk about what furniture you might be bringing with you or what furniture you might be buying new. And so we're also, if you're buying new, we're going to start giving ideas of what that could be in terms of size and style and finish, so that we have an idea when we get to the end of the design phase, what you might want to purchase. And so now I'm going to flip back to phase 3. And so the procurement phase is where we would be looking at purchasing or potentially purchasing furniture and accessories for you. We do have accounts with wholesalers as well as discounts that we share with our clients. And so you can order things through us. We can literally make the project turnkey for you if you want us to. And that allows you can really just sit back and go, I'm going to help make decisions, but I don't have to worry about it. It doesn't have to become my job to track things and order things and find out where they are and get them shipped to my house and set up. So we can do all of that. And so what we're finding more and more is that clients are looking to have this added service with their project, and they are really appreciating it because you get to a finished space that's being built out. Now what do you put in it? And once we put the furniture and accessories and hang the art on the walls, then the space is truly finished. Step 13, and sorry, I think I jumped ahead to one. The other thing I was going to speak on, which I missed, was project management. And project management or construction management, our role can be twofold. One, we can actually hire the trades to be able to do the project if you would like us to, or if you already have a general contractor or a project manager, then our role is to make sure that all of those drawings that we spent so much time on phase 2 and the design we've decided on is actually being implemented according to the drawings in construction. So we are advocates. We are advocates for you. We are advocates for the drawings, and we are also want to be there to assist the GC when they have questions. So if something happens on site that was unexpected, a wall is opened up, and all of a sudden we need to do some redesign, we're there to do that redesign, whether it's coming on site and answering questions, whether it's doing a quick redrawing of something. We don't drop the drawings in your hand and then run away after the drawings are done. We are there to again advocate for you and for the design throughout phase 3. And then the setup, sorry, I'm jumping around a bit again here. The setup is, again, what I mentioned. If you want that turnkey moment on HGTV, we would call it the move that bus moment, where you literally come home and things are put in place and you are ready to live in the space. We can do that as well. So now I'm just going to show you some photos of the finished space that we were talking about, so you can get an idea of how those 3Ds now transformed into the real thing. So again, a beautiful space, a beautiful view. We just love this project. And one of the things we want to do is we want to make sure that you love the project as well. And so at the closeout phase, which happens after construction is done and everything is finished and you've moved in, we call that the closeout phase. And what we do then is we want to have a discussion with you. We want to find out how we did. We want to find out what you were surprised by, what you enjoyed, what didn't go right, because there's always something that doesn't go right. And we want to learn from anything that didn't and find out what we did well so that we can move forward into our next projects with more information. We also tend to take photography. We have a professional photographer that will come out, and we also give you some of the material samples that we used in your project. So if you need them when you go shopping for other things, you've got them, as well as a full set of drawings in digital format. So realistic timelines and budgets. This is always a big topic that everybody wants to find out more about. I have said here, please don't let HGTV fool you. No, you cannot do a major project in a weekend with $500. It just doesn't work. And one of the things that we try very hard to do is be very upfront and honest about these. Sometimes it's scary when we say some of the numbers. So I apologize if it's a little scary, but I would rather be realistic and set the tone for what to expect than to say something that maybe is what a client would like to hear and then not be able to ever meet those expectations. So timelines, let's talk about timelines. And when I'm talking timelines, I'm talking design right now. So I'm not talking construction. That's not the purpose of today's seminar. So in general, I use the average of it takes about as long to design a space as it takes to build it. Rushing it is not worth it. Once you get into the design and you realize how many decisions need to be made in order for that space to be built correctly, you will realize that it's worth taking the time. And so, for instance, I gave some examples on the right-hand side of the screen. Kitchen renovation. Let's say a kitchen renovation takes 3 months to build out. It'll take about 3 months to design it. A basement renovation, let's say 5 months. A new build or a major addition, that can be a year-long design project, to be quite honest. And that floors some people, because there's builders out there who put up a house in 6 months. But you have to remember that those types of buildings are typically not custom. They've been done time and time again. So it's just a cookie cutter repeat, go and repeat, go and repeat. Whereas what we're talking about here is something that's custom. And so it takes a lot more time. Once we have to get other people involved, like other consultants, engineers, CETs, we also have to respect that they need time to do their work. So those timelines stretch because we're designing, but they also have to do their drawings as well. Budgets. Here's the really scary conversation. On average, I would put the expectation that the design costs on a project could range from 8 to 15% of your actual construction budget. And when I say actual, I mentioned before that 99% of the time when we have an initial meeting with a client, they will come in and say, I want my building or my space, let's say my kitchen, I want to do it for this much money and this much timeline. And very rarely is that the reality. So we need to even that gap out. And so 8 to 15%, it's a broad range because we're talking about a broad different types of projects. So on the right, again, let's say we're looking at a kitchen renovation. To build a kitchen, a brand new kitchen, and we're talking about new cabinetry, maybe redesigning the actual physical space, again, new cabinetry, flooring, electrical, plumbing, all of that kind of thing. A starting point would probably be about $65,000. And that's not like all the bells and whistles kind of a kitchen. That's a nice standard kitchen. And so the design of designs of kitchens and bathrooms, the things that have really detailed millwork or cabinetry, plumbing, electrical, they kind of have all the things in them, are the ones that are the highest on the percentage side of design. So I would average that a kitchen design would start probably around $9,500. A basement renovation, it's probably $90,000 plus now to do a basement. And again, when I'm doing these numbers, I'm not talking about DIY. I'm not talking do it yourself. I am talking about hiring a professional to come in and build that out for you. So if you're thinking of taking it on yourself and you're swinging the hammer and buying the materials, those prices may change. But if you're hiring a professional to build it for you, these are average numbers. So you can see a corresponding design might be around 11.5. If you're looking at doing a new build or a major renovation, I can't put a price to that because I don't know what size and how big. But in Manitoba right now, I would say on average, we're probably somewhere around $250 to $350 a square foot. 250 would be entry level, and the 350, you can always go up from there. You can always up your budget in any way, shape, or form by the materials you're picking or just the type of structure you're looking for. And so a design of that would probably be 30,000 plus. And so that just gives you some ideas of what it might cost. And some of you might have questions, so I don't know what the questions in the chat are yet, but what's the difference? So if I just have someone, let's say, I go to a drafts person and they give me a set of plans. I can get those for $5,000. So why would I spend $30,000 if I'm building a new house or doing a renovation, you might ask, and that's a great question. It's a different process. And so when you get a set of plans from a drafts person, they do great work. I'm not saying it's just a different way of working. You're going to get a set of plans and probably some exterior elevations. You're not going to have any materials. You're not going to have any interior elevations. You're not going to know what your kitchen looks like. You're going to know what the plan looks like. There's a sink here and a stove there and a pantry there. But you're not going to know how high are those cabinets on the wall? What material are they made out of? What's the hardware on them? What's the countertop? You're not going to have a lighting plan. And so that's what we do, is that cohesive approach versus just getting a plan and then it's up to you to figure out the rest. So that is the end of my portion of the presentation. I'm going to open it up to questions. So Carrie has been tracking the chat. I'm also going to stop sharing my screen for a minute, just so I can kind of see people instead of staring blankly at myself. And so, Carrie, do you want to?
Hi, everyone. Kind of similar to last week, Tracy, nobody's actually popped any questions in yet.
Okay.
So maybe
Great.
we'll just take a minute to see if anybody has any.
Yeah, start typing, or just, you know what, if you feel like going off of mute and asking, feel free to do that too.
Yeah.
So Carrie, as you listen to the presentation, it's one that you've heard many times over. Is there anything in there that if you were hearing it from the first time that you might think, hey, you know what, I'm not sure about this, or that we could expand on a little bit to help our listeners out?
I mean, you've kind of gone through everything quite well from my perspective. And again, maybe it's just from me hearing it
Right.
many times, with clients, because I had wrote down, kind of jotted down, like, what kind of technical details do we provide? And you kind of touched on that you're getting reflected ceiling plans and you're getting full millwork drawings.
Yeah.
And you touched on CAT does. So I think you kind of went over that when I kind of jotted it down. And the other thing was the budgets and timelines, just how you determine how are you getting to those numbers, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. From the design side, there's a couple of ways I do it. I know I put a percentage on there, but I use that as sort of a secondary tool. It's more, I look at projects that we've done in the past and I compare scope and scale of what I've done on a project that might have been a similar scope and scale in the past. And I use that as a guideline for what I think design is going to cost. We've done this for enough years that we tend to be fairly accurate with that. We also have wiggle room in how we set up our proposals, where if the client wants more time with us, for instance, if we say this phase might include 3 meetings and you guys would want 5, absolutely, we can just expand. Like the budget has some room in there, so we give a range of where we think the low end to the high end of that design might be. If you're going to want 5 meetings instead, we're going to get up to the higher range, or we might surpass it. So that gives us that gives you the ability to say, hey, you know what, I need more time. And it also gives us the ability to be able to give that time without losing our shirts. But yeah, it's a quiet group today. If anyone feels like I say, jumping on and asking your question out loud, if you don't feel like typing, feel free. Maybe I'll ask a question to the group, and if you want to respond, that would be great. Is there anything in what I presented today, whether it was the process, the timelines, or the budget, that shocked you? Oh, Tim's going to jump on. Hi, Tim.
I think probably the price of the price of the renovation, and also the price of the design specific piece, and also the timeline of the design. It's much longer than I had expected, but it makes sense when you explain it. So yeah, that like 99% of the time, it's either the timeline or the budget that shocks people. And surprisingly, I would say more often than not, it's the timeline that is more the hard thing for people to wrap their head around. Partially, I think, because, well, we like to get things done. Like, you've been thinking about your project probably for 6 months, a year, 2 years before you actually reach out to a consultant. And so you are ready to go, and you want to start that process now. And when we tell you it's actually going to take
3, 6, 9 months to design it, it feels like, oh, I was ready yesterday and now it's going to take longer. But I can honestly say that rushing that process generally means that there's going to be a problem somewhere down the road, and you're probably going to lose time either in having to reorder materials or reconstruct something if it's not done well on paper. So we always say make your mistakes on paper so that you don't have to make them while construction's happening, because that is way more expensive and way more frustrating.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen that, like, I know I mentioned last week that I'm in the trades, and I've definitely seen that where it's like, now we have to go back and change everything. But yeah, because I think for me, I know I had mentioned last week as well, we recently bought this house. This wall color is not what I had envisioned. And
Not your favorite?
honestly, not the worst wall in the house. So that'll tell you kind of where things are at. But I am hoping to take on the house project in smaller pieces. And so we have the original furnace to the house, 1961. So it is quite old. And I'm wanting to replace it as soon as possible. But I don't want to put the furnace in the middle of the basement if, 5 years down the road, I'm now 5 stages into my renovation, and I'm like, this isn't where I want the furnace to be.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get a big picture vision for, like a plan, a layout, all the space, so that when I put in the new furnace, I'm going to put it in a place that makes sense in 5-10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So we were hoping to move the furnace this summer, but from what I hear you saying, we have a 1,000 square foot bungalow, so about 2,000 square feet would take roughly 9 to 12 months to put a plan together for that type of major renovation.
It could.
So
yeah,
it's like, okay, we got to start a lot sooner than I thought.
Yeah. I love it when clients come to us and say, you know what, it's September and I want to start construction next September. Like, that's a really nice thing to hear. A lot of times, especially in the spring, I find that people get spring fever, and this year should definitely be spring fever. But they come in like, it's all of a sudden it feels like, okay, it's March and I'm tired of being in my house all winter. I want to gut this thing and do a renovation, right? And can we start in June? And it's like, whew, no, not if you're wanting to do this type of a process. If you're willing to go get a sledgehammer and start banging down walls and do it yourself, sure, by all means. The other thing that's going to slow things down, and that's more on the construction side, is that supply chain issue that we're all dealing with right now. We literally have some suppliers on like the plumbing side that are saying it's 300 days of lead time if you want that faucet. That's almost a year. So obviously,
I am a plumber, so I know that.
You feel the pain.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah.
And so patience, I think, is the word of 2022, possibly. But the nice thing is we can design, we can get things on paper. And if, like I say, last week we talked about, if you do the design build approach, once you get to a certain point and you are committed to saying, this is the material I want to use, even if we don't have permits yet and we don't have final pricing, you could get some of those things ordered and get them en route, so that when you are ready to start building, you're not waiting another 6, 7, 8 months for that item to come in.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I just thought of another question. Based on your experience, how often would you say design trends and fads last for? Like, because for, like I was saying, we're planning on doing our renovation in phases, and our current estimate for our budget is we won't be able to afford to do the basement for like till 15 years. So it's like, are we going to come up with a plan, but then in 15 years it's going to be like totally irrelevant? So how long would you say, like cupboard colors, flooring, like that kind of stuff, how long would you say those trends last for?
Yeah, that's a good question. Carrie, feel free to jump in on this one too, because you're the one that has her hands in design every day more than I do at this point. One thing I will say is the more cohesive you can think about your style. And if you have a very specific direction with it, that lasts longer, regardless if it's the style of the day or not, than if you start piecemealing things. So Carrie, you can speak to the other.
Yeah, I would say definitely like you probably want to lean towards something that's a little bit more timeless. So you're not doing the really extravagant, bold colors or things like that. That those are typically the beats, right? You think about the like 1950s bathrooms that have pink sinks in them, right? Like, you know, when those were put in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just keep everything more, I want to say, neutral and clean and classy. That's usually how it lasts longer. And stay away away from some of the flash and the trends because they come in and out pretty quickly. So that's we approach it with a lot of our clients when they ask for that timeless style.
Yeah, I would say probably though, if you actually wanted to timeline a trend, 5 to 8 years, somewhere around there, maybe 10 if it's a really classic thing. But the more cohesive it is, the more it's going to stay timeless rather than trying to go. That's where going back to that concept that we talked about right at the beginning, where it's like, this is the direction we're going. And if you can keep your eye on that prize the whole time, then you just keep working with that over and over again.
Sure. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. If there's no other questions, I'm going to share my screen one more time. And I just wanted to put up the information about if you want to watch them again, or if there's information in these sessions that you think might be helpful to someone else that you know that's going to potentially be doing a renovation or a new build, we're going to put that link up on our website. It's going to take us a couple of days, so maybe check back at the end of this week or early next week. And we'll also be sending the link to each of you that signed up to participate. So watch for that in your email. I know sometimes those emails go to junk mail as well, so just check your junk mail. And thank you so much for attending once again. I hope that the information has been helpful. If you have any more questions that you didn't want to ask today, or they come up after you've thought about it for a while, again, you can reach out to an email, info@s3interiordesign.com. It'll come directly to me. Our phone number is there. Our website, there's also links to be able to reach us through the website. And we also are on Instagram and Facebook. So please, if you're interested in seeing some of our work and what's coming and what we've done in the past and what we're doing in the future, Instagram and Facebook is a really, really great way to keep up with that. So thank you again for your time. We are right on 12:45. So I hope you've enjoyed your lunch, and thank you again. Have a great rest of your day.